It was about July, I believe, July of 70, and I was in Paris. Prabhupada had sent me to Europe to organize our temples in London and Paris and Hamburg. At that time there was no GBC, but he put me in charge to coordinate the temples there. So I was in Paris and I suddenly got a telegram. Your letter, 26th July, come Los Angeles immediately. I was on a plane that same day, and I just detached myself and I got on a plane and went to Los Angeles. So that was quite a time, because it was the time of, our forced sannyasis in our society there was some difficulty in their understanding of how the movement was to be run. So Prabhupada was very, very disturbed, because he had detected that there had been some poison which had come in terms of belittling his position, which had come from some of his godbrothers in India. So I came in the evening, and then the next morning Prabhupada called me, having heard I'd come, and he called me and he was very grave. And he looked very shriveled almost. And he looked up to me, and he just had a little spotlight on his table, desk lamp. He looked up and he said, "Have they told you?" And I said, "Yes, Prabhupada." He said, "Can you take me out of here?" I said, "Yes, Prabhupada." He said, "Where will you take me?" So I thought, and I said, "Well, I could take you to Florida." I said, "It's not far enough." I said, "I could take you to Europe." He said, "The poison has spread there as well." Then I said, "Then where do you want to go?" I said, "I want to go to India." I think that Prabhupada had the ability to accomplish many, many purposes by each one of his actions. Later on, Prabhupada told me in 1977, he said, Prabhupada was laying in his bed in Krishna Balaram Temple, and we were reminiscing. He said, "Remember when you took me from Los Angeles?" I said, "Yes." He said, "At that time," he said, "I went before Sri Sri Rukmini Dwarkadish, and I said, 'My dear Lord, you have called me all the way here, and you have given me this wonderful temple. Now why are you sending me away?' Prabhupada said, I couldn't understand why the Lord was sending me out. And he said, now I understand, because he wanted to give me this temple, Krishna Balaram Temple. He said, this is 100 times what every other temple in the world is. He said, but I didn't understand at that time.
One evening, he said he wanted to have a feast for the Gita Press people. He said they have been sheltering us and feeding us, so we will cook for them. And I got to cook it. Well, actually, our cooks made sabji and puris, and I made a chutney and halava, which I made with milk. Right? Later on, Prabhupada said it's Parsi halava, it's first class, but that was later. One way or the other way, I cooked in the afternoon, then everyone came to the program. I remember in the afternoon, Prabhupada asked what I was going to make as a chutney, and I said, apple. And he went, I do not think apple chutney is very nice. Make tomato, or something like that. I said, well, Prabhupada, they already purchased the fruit, so we already have the apples. He said, all right, he said, but I do not, apple chutney. So anyway, so I thought, well, I'll do the best I can. It was already, because it was like 20 rupees for the apples or something like that. They were not common, right? Anyway, putting that aside now, the program went on. At this program, Prabhupada, for example, a couple days earlier, and throughout that week, Prabhupada had been teaching us. He had a copy of Bhaktivinoda's songbook that he'd just been given. And he was teaching us Jai Radha Madhava in the morning by having us repeat it after him. Right? He took a special liking to that particular song, and that's when he began to sing it before his morning class. That's when it started. And he was teaching it to us by repeating one line at a time and having us repeat it after him. Another time at the same time, deities were there. It was either Radha Damodar or another almost identical set to Radha Damodar that we had acquired there. They were the medium, about this high, the multi-metal kind, really beautiful deities that we were worshiping there. And we were taking care of the deity worship. And the floor was wooden, and Prabhupada didn't think it was properly clean, and he mentioned it, and then when he saw it, he didn't think it was clean enough again. I remember Kaushalya had volunteered to clean the floor in the temple room. Prabhupada said, well, okay, this is how you do it. You're not doing it properly. Do it like this. And Prabhupada pulled his dhoti up and got down on his hands and knees. And he had a pot of water, right, and another pot. He said, get 2 pots, right? One for dirty water, one for clean water. And he took a rag and he put it in one pot of water. He got down, he scrubbed the floor, right? Then he went to the other pot and he wringed it. Then he wringed it out into that, and then he rinsed it, and then he put it in fresh water and put it back down, wring it out, and then went back down and mopped up what he'd done. He said, in this way you will keep one that is clean and one that gets dirtier, and always rinse the rag and then soak up the dirt. That way you'll pick up the dirt rather than just moving it around. But he spent like 2 or 3 minutes down on his hands and knees scrubbing the floor in front of the deities. I remember that was a nice thing to see him do. He didn't hesitate to do it at all. He got right down and showed Kaushalya exactly how he wanted it done.
Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's, I think it was appearance day. So I told Prabhupada that, Srila Prabhupada, can we celebrate this in the evening, because then we'll have a lot of guests. Prabhupada said, no, it must be celebrated at noon. So it was on a Friday. I said, Friday evening we can fill up the temple. He said, no, it must be at noon. So we celebrated it in the room, in Prabhupada's room. Prabhupada had a little room. This is La Cienega Boulevard Temple, L.A. Prabhupada had a side room next to the big temple room. So Prabhupada did all of the prayers and spoke about his Guru Maharaj. Then he said to me, how is the feast going? So I said, I'll take a look. It was about 10:30. So I went in. Nothing was done. There was no preparation. So I went back and I said, what is going on here? I started screaming at them. They said, well, you told us it was going to be Friday night. I said, Prabhupada wanted it at noon, and maybe it was my mistake. I might not have conveyed the message in any case. So I went back to Prabhupada and he said, so, how is it going? And I said, there's nothing done. Prabhupada just looked at me. Didn't say a word. Got up, walked out of his room, through the temple, through the prasadam hall, and into the kitchen. He immediately told the devotees, get this done, cut this vegetable. He cooked a feast in 1 hour for at least 70 devotees. Personally cooked the whole feast, at least 12 preparations, within 1 hour's time. And he always told me, I always remember this, Prabhupada always said, deity worship is 1 hour's business, cooking is 1 hour's business. Cooked the whole feast in 1 hour. And I remember one of the best things I remember about it was the way Prabhupada made the puris that day. Because every puri puffed up. He put in the puri in the hot ghee, and he would just touch it. And it was like he would touch them. I remember they would blow a little and he would touch them, even sometimes with his finger. They were just perfect puris. Then the feast was offered, and it was brought out of Prabhupada's room after. It was given to Prabhupada, the whole Maha plate. Within about 3 minutes afterwards, it came out practically untouched. And we were all eating this big feast, and we saw Prabhupada didn't eat, and everybody went, oh. Prabhupada was very upset. But he still cooked the whole feast for his Guru Maharaj. He was determined that it must be, and he told him it must be offered by 12. But he was very disturbed.